Hello everyone, this is the second episode of Developer Diaries, and today we have a very special guest. He is Bardhan Mishra and he is an MLH Fellow. He is Developer Outreach at Deep Source, Tech Lead at DSC, Web Developer, Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, technical blogger, and also an open source contributor and enthusiast. So, yeah, how are you today, Harsh?
Yeah, I'm completely fine. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I'm doing great and I'm really excited to talk to you. So, can you just
Same here.
introduce yourself? Yeah,
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Harsh, and I am an MLH fellow for the fall 2020 batch. And I have been a former software engineer intern at QXF2 and a technical content reviewer at Geeks for Geeks. Beside all that, I'm a third year student at Satyabhama Institute of Science and Technology, and I'm currently studying in Chennai right now. And I like to work with web development, data modeling, and algorithms. And I like to do a lot of public speaking and content writing. So these are a part of my hobbies. And over the past few months, I have been a participant as well as a project administrator for various open source programs. And I'm also a Microsoft student ambassador and a technical lead at DSC. So that is a brief introduction about myself.
these are a lot of experiences from just one single person. So yeah, I'll just ask some questions. Okay. So, where did the motivation came from for pursuing BTech and especially this field?
Okay, so basically, my primary motivation behind going forward for this field was like from my school days. So basically, I was a student in ICSE board, and we study programming like from class 4 and 5. So I studied a lot of programming languages like C++, Java, QBasic, and Logo. Like Logo was one of my favorite, and I absolutely hated C++ for some reasons. But after my class 10th, I decided to go for JEE preparation, and I didn't quite succeed in that. But once I wanted to be an engineer, I specifically wanted to be a mechanical engineer because I loved physics. But in my family, we have a lot of people who are into software industry. So all of them advised me one thing, that if you already have some experience with coding, it is always best for you to go with BTech. So that is why I landed upon this Bachelor of Engineering program in Computer Science and Engineering.
That's great. So, can
Yeah.
you tell us about MLH Fellowship? Like, how did you apply, interview experience, and any advice for the students who will apply in the future?
Yeah, sure. So that will basically go a bit long, but I will be
That's
quite
okay.
brief about that. Yeah. So basically, MLH announced its fellowship program for students who actually lost their internships due to this COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of students had lost their internships and they were looking for some new opportunities, basically towards contributing to open source or getting involved with larger projects. And this is when MLH partnered with GitHub and Facebook and some other organizations. They basically launched this fellowship program. So I have been associated with MLH as a local hack day organizer for past some time. So I came to know about this fellowship program and I decided to apply for this for the very first batch. But sadly, I was rejected because of my late application. But they considered me for the next batch, and they basically told that once the application starts back again, they will be sending that back again. So the applications started again in the month of August, I guess. And I basically got a fast track code from MLH that basically allows them to prioritize my application. And I decided to apply for that. So to be very honest, I didn't had much chances in my thought that I will be getting selected for this. But luckily, after a few weeks, I guess 2 to 3 weeks, I got the first mail that they are reviewing my application right now. And if I'm passing that particular round, I will be getting the interview call. And luckily, I got the interview call as well. And the first round was a behavioral round. So for people who have not gone through the MLH fellowship interview experience, the first round is a behavioral round, and it is usually taken by people who are already associated with MLH as a fellow. So my interview was taken by one of the previous fellows at MLH. His name was Ryan, and it can be thought of as a basic chit chat session. So basically, we talk about ourselves. We talk about what things we are doing. So at that time, I was mentoring a hackathon, and then we like talk about the projects we are doing and what is my interest in MLH Fellowship. So it can be taken as an HR interview where basically you will be asked questions about your interest and why are you into this fellowship program. And once you successfully answer all the questions, you will be like move forward to the next round. So I got my selection process like within 24 hours, and I was told that I'm going to the next round, and it will be a technical round. And I was really so much tensed about the technical round. Even I contacted Seema to help me with my interview process. And this technical round was taken by an engineer who has worked with GitHub and who has developed the Hacktoberfest website as well. So if you have participated in Hacktoberfest, you see the whole portal and all. So that engineer has particularly developed it. So my project was basically around a hackathon project. So I applied for that. And MLS doesn't believe in whiteboard interviews. So basically, they will not be asking you any sort of data structure and algorithm question. They will basically ask you to submit a code sample in your application form, and they will ask you to just explain that code sample in front of the interviewer. And the interviewer can ask any sort of question from any part of the code sample. So yeah, so basically, I had my interview. Luckily, the interviewer didn't ask me much questions. I don't know why, but he didn't ask me much questions. And I got the selection mail within 36 hours. So that was pretty fast.
Great.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, up till now, like we have almost reached the end of the fellowship. Like we will be going through one more sprint, and every sprint goes for 2 weeks where we have an engineering focus and a developer focus. So developer focus can be anything. It can be like artificial intelligence and machine learning. It can be blockchain. It can be some other thing like open innovation, education, and all that. And with every sprint there is an engineering focus. So engineering focus can be something like documentation, writing clean code, writing unit tests properly, and all that. So it has been a great experience so far. I was selected in the Explorer Fellowship, so I will be reapplying for the Open Source Fellowship because there are some pretty large projects. So I just want to get the hang of contributing among them.
That's great. Okay, so we have some questions. Um so, should we apply for Explorer or open source or externship?
Yeah, so I will go with the latter part right now. So externship will basically allow you to contribute to projects that are confidential in manner. So some of the externship projects are being handled by the Department of Defense under the Pentagon that comes under US government. So I don't know exactly if it is for Indian students or not, but last time I checked, it was not for Indian students. They also have some big
Okay.
corporates and banking sectors as well, but I don't know much about it. So that is a bit confidential, and we never went into those details. Now coming
Yeah.
on to Explorer and open source. So both of them are for intermediate developers because Explorer Fellowship requires you to have some experience with development, with learning some new technologies, and with applying to them. So if you have already gone to hackathons and participated in multiple developer events, then the Explorer Fellowship is for you because you get to learn a lot of things, you get to build a lot of things. And open source fellowship is more about rebuilding on an existing project. So there can be projects like React Native. There can be about Doxorus that is monitored by Facebook. So you have to learn that particular technology stack and you have to start building on it. So there are a lot of learnings in both of them. But from my personal experience, if you're a beginner and you're looking to get some new challenges and looking to learn some new things, then the Explorer Fellowship is for you.
Yeah. So we have another question from Pallavi. Project
Yeah.
was on favorite celebrities app where something around 5 people are shown with their photo, name, and one line about them. So she wants that
So
please elaborate about project. Yeah.
okay, so basically, your project is on Flutter, and one of my co-fellows, he also submitted his project in Flutter. So I don't think that would be an issue, but majority of the times it is preferred for you to have a project either on Python or on JavaScript and TypeScript, because majority of the projects are using these technology stack. Now, coming on to your project, so basically I can pre-assume that it is a Flutter application. You have an API up and running somewhere. You're basically parsing it and you're showing the detail. So in the code sample, or basically in the whole project, the reviewer will be taking a look at few things. The first, how clean your code is. So basically, many people, what they tend to do is that they tend to write the code. They basically see some things are not working. They basically comment it out, and they start writing some external code. So that thing will not work, because the reviewers want some sort of a clean code. They want it to be properly defined. You must be using some proper variable names and all that, some proper function names, and it should be well commented. Like, you should be able to explain what this code logic is doing. Second, you should, like, basically the code sample shows the entire engineering skills that you have. So even if you know how to do some basic JSON parsing and how to call APIs, that is completely fine. And but you should be doing it in the proper way, like following the best practices and all, because the reviewers will be scrutinizing you on that basis. So at last, from my assumption, this project will be all fine. Now it depends on you whether you are able to explain the code or not, because sometimes the reviewers might pick on something that they might ask about, and sometimes we just tend to forget about that particular thing. So it pretty much happens in every technical interview. So just
Yeah.
go through the code the whole and try to answer the best you can.
Yes. We have a question from Ankur. Uh, Suppose we get the fellowship and the work which I not know about. So, how much support will we get from the mentors related to the work? And do we get to work in a team or alone?
Okay, so basically you will be working in a team. The team will be either of 3 members or 4 members, depending on the developer and the engineering focus. And you will be getting a lot of support from the mentor. So basically you will be placed in a Discord server, and you will have some industrial mentors as well. So like during our gaming sprint, we had a mentor from Unity and some other gaming companies. And let's say if we are having some doubts, we can directly ping them. And if they are in their free time, which they most usually are not, they will be basically answering those doubts. But in general, you will be placed in a pod, and every pod has a mentor, like basically your guide throughout the whole fellowship. So he or she is basically responsible for guiding you out throughout the entire process. So during this fellowship, I learned a lot of things like GraphQL, AWS Amplify, Flutter Web, and basically I can like all the things that I can see is that I have learned all this from my team members and from my mentor. So you will be
Yeah.
getting all the support from them.
It's a great way to learn from the team. Yeah, it's
Yes.
always great. How much time MLH work take daily? Will I able to my semester side by side?
Okay, so when I got my fellowship at MLH, basically I was a software engineer intern at QXF2, and I was also doing my classes almost 6 hours a daily. So you will be getting enough time for that. But majority of the co-fellows, what they do is that they overwork. So even though we are like given the responsibility of like dedicating almost 20 to 25 hours per week, sometimes we over dedicate and we like go for 50 to 55 hours per week, depending on the project. So right now we are working on a project that is trying to enhance developer experience. So we are pretty eased out, but let's say we have a track like gaming or education, then we are going to overwork on this and sometimes also pull an
Yeah.
all-nighter.
Yeah, so I had a question that how do you manage time? You are doing a lot of things parallelly, so how do you manage that?
So basically, it all boils down to time management. Like as students and as developers, we sometimes get problematic with time management and prioritizing our work. So once you start prioritizing the work, basically start dividing your entire task into what is urgent and what is basically necessary. You will start
Yeah.
dedicating the time according to that, and basically you can start moving up with your career. So there are a lot of time blockers. We tend to procrastinate a lot, but once we start managing the time, everything just falls in line.
Yeah. It's all about priorities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pallavi is asking, I don't know Python and JS, then what should I do now? I know Flutter only.
So yeah, basically I can pre-assume that since you're using Flutter SDK, you already have knowledge of Dart. And this is the first time I'm seeing someone without any programming experience jumping directly into Dart and a proprietary framework. So I will just
Yeah.
advise you to go a bit over Python and JavaScript, because these languages are being these languages are almost being used in every open source project. So it would be better for you to understand the best practices in them and start working on it. And even though you don't know any particular language, there is no problem in that. The open source fellows are working on Julia language, and I don't think that
Mm.
majority of the fellows already had an experience with Julia. So they learned about it and they have basically started implementing their own features and libraries out of this. So it totally depends on how you can sponge a lot of things at one single time. Yeah.
Okay. So what reason makes a person disqualify?
Okay, so basically, from what I can perceive, the whole application has got three things that are quite essential. The first one are the questions. So basically, once you go into the page 2 or page 3 of the fellowship application, you will have a lot of questions. Have you ever worked on GraphQL? Have you ever worked with REST API? Have you worked on a Mac OS environment? So depending on how many questions we answer, they will be basically deciding whether the candidate is qualified or not. So that is the first place where they will be rejecting a lot of candidates, because sometimes the candidates don't have a lot of experience. The second are the essays. So basically, they ask a lot of questions on why do you want to become a fellow, or learning is a constant process during the fellowship process. So, like, what have you learned recently? So, how you answer the essay questions will depend if you will be called for interviews or not. So, what many people tend to do is that they try to overlook it, like they just like write 2 to 3 lines, highlighting their experience or highlighting their interest in this, but try to go a bit forward, try to make it personalized so that the reviewer can also exactly understand on what your interests are. So sometimes you just need to introspect a bit, try to see why you want to become a fellow, and maybe the current fellowship might not even fall with your career alignments. So you might have a change of mind as well. So introspection a bit, not only for fellowship but also for any job interview application, will tend to go forward a long way.
So what type of project do we have to submit for MLH Fellowship?
So there is no such criteria for submission of project, but if you see the fellowship application, there are just 4 points mentioned. Beside that, you should take care of few things: how clean your code is, and I basically highlighted about this earlier. What sort of engineering skills you have applied in this? So engineering skills can be like, have you done some JSON parsing? Have you called some APIs? Have you done a post request? Or have you queried some data? So these are all a part of our engineering practices. So how many of you have applied that in your current project? So make sure that whatever project you're submitting, that is the best shot you have for now. And let's say if it is not succeeding, because MLH tends to send a lot of feedbacks, and some of the feedbacks are quite common. So if they're commenting anything on the project, try to dedicate some time in building a project that exactly shows what skills you have, so that you have a better profile and a better project for the next application.
Okay. So what is our work in MLH?
Okay. So as a fellow, like MLH has a lot of job postings. So as a fellow, basically, like if I talk about my specific pod, so I'm an Explorer fellow, and we basically work on hackathon projects, because hackathons are a fun way of learning and also implementing some real world projects. So we run in sprints. So in every sprint, we have 2 weeks and we have to complete one hackathon project. And that hackathon project has an engineering focus and a developer focus. So developer focus can be like machine learning, blockchain, gaming, education, while the engineering focus can be like documentation, code quality, code reviewing, test analysis, and all that. And you basically work on hackathon projects. Your hackathon projects are basically judged by industrial mentors. So like last time, our hackathon project was judged by a mentor from AWS, I suppose. So that is a fun way of getting feedbacks on your project and also leveling up your profile for hackathons.
Yeah.
And also, if you are still building your resume, you will also have a lot of chance to populate your resume with some real world projects. I cannot say much about the open source fellowship, but in open source fellowship, you basically work on open source projects. There are hackathons as well, but these are just like beginner and midway hackathons. But for the majority of the part, you work on fixing bugs, creating new features, or even creating new libraries from scratch using that particular technology stack.
Do this fellowship is given to college students only? I'm asking this question because my fourth year will end in May, so will they consider my application?
So I know two people who are not in the college right now. So one of the person is currently working as a software development engineer at Zomato, and he's still doing his fellowship at MLH. And the second person, who is one of my personal inspiration, he is right now in class 11, and he is my co-fellow, and we have worked on a lot of projects together. So being a college student is not a criteria for being selected as a fellow at MLH. You just need to have the intent for that. And let's say if you're like below 18 years of age, you just need to have the permission of your parents, and that can be just one
Yeah.
signature.
Okay. So before learning JS, should I learn HTML and CSS?
Okay, so that is a bit tricky question because JavaScript as a whole was conceptualized as a browser-side scripting language, but right now it is being used as a server-side language as well. So if you just go to some platform like Free Code Camp, they have an entire course on JavaScript, basically the second course, and they don't even take into account HTML and CSS. They just basically teach you all about implementing features and implementing scripts using JavaScript itself. So yes, you can freely go for JavaScript if you don't want to learn HTML and CSS first, and that will basically strengthen your concepts. But let's say if you want to develop interactive web applications, so you need to have some basic workaround knowledge of HTML and CSS so that you can work on document object model and basically DOM manipulations and all that. And that can be made possible only using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript together.
When would the result of application form will be announced? Any idea?
I don't have much ideas, but they will be reviewing all the applications on a rolling basis. So if you're applying right now, so your application will be considered on a priority basis compared to any other person who will be applying after 2, 3 weeks or let's say a month. So they are basically reviewing the application on a rolling basis. They call for interviews. If it all goes fine, they will be selecting you and they will be filling you in the batch. So they have like a time limit for filling up the application, but most of the time it happens
Yeah.
that you fill up the application quite late and it doesn't get reviewed. So try to submit your application as fast as possible, and try to also schedule your interviews early so that you will be prioritized and you will be getting a chance to work with the fellowship program.
Yeah. Okay, so is there any stipend do we get, and is there any way to deny stipend? Because if I deny, then they may select us because just I want to learn from this fellowship.
Okay, so that is a bit tricky question again. So basically, MLH offers you a 5,000 US dollar stipend, but the nature of the stipend is need based. So let's say
Yeah,
if you already have a laptop, you already have an education going on, you already have a home and everything, like they send us an application form for that purpose back again. And after that process, they will be scrutinizing if you will need the stipend or not. And majority of the times you will be denied the stipend, so there is no chance like of getting the stipend unless and until you have some grave issues. So if you're
yeah,
like selected in the fellowship program, they will be sending you another form back again, and they will basically ask you for all your details so that you just don't fake into that. And then they will be reviewing it and they will be offering you a minimum stipend, or in some cases even no stipend at all. So you can take it as an educational experience. You can
yeah,
possibly deny that in the initial application itself, but that will not cause much effect, in my opinion.
yeah. Learning is the important part in this.
Yeah.
Okay, So everyone has to do hackathon projects, or we have any work also.
Okay, so basically, you will be working mainly on the hackathon projects in the Explorer pod. But again, like you can contact your like you can contact your mentors, and they have a lot of experience in development and open source as well. So if you want to contribute to some open source libraries that are not scrutinized by MLH Fellowship, you are free to do so. So during this fellowship program, I have contributed to Uber's Casual ML library and Google's Tracks. So
Yeah.
this fellowship program not only teaches you how to ace hackathons, but it also teaches you on how you can contribute to open source and follow the best practices. So you can leverage on that, obviously.
Okay, so Purnima is asking, I'm good with front-end development, HTML, CSS, JS, and React JS, and also contributed to an open source project. So is it fine if I submit basic front-end website project for the application?
Yes, so as long as you can explain your project in any situation, you are completely fine to go ahead and submit this. But just you need to understand the code properly. So let's say if you have been using
Yeah.
React hooks for managing your application state, they might ask you like what is a React hook and how you can develop a custom hook and all that. So it all depends on how much you understand the code and how clean your code is. You should be applying some sort of an engineering practice in that, so that it basically shows like how good you are at it as a developer.
Okay, should we apply for Spring now?
It's your call. You can apply for Spring now or sometime later
Yeah.
as well.
Okay, so I had filled the form yesterday, then when I would get to know about my selection? It's
Give at
unpredictable,
least
I guess.
1 month. Give at least one
Yeah,
month to the selection
yeah,
panel for reviewing your
yeah,
application. But you will be getting a mail if your application is being reviewed. So don't worry about
yeah.
that.
Okay. So I applied before the call, that is November 10th, and then I got email about opening. So should I apply again?
No, you don't need to apply back again. They will be reviewing your application and they will get back to you if you find suitable for the particular role.
Yeah. Okay. So how much communication skills matter during interview, as it's a global level program? So do we have to be good, extremely good in English?
I don't think so that you have to be extremely good in English, but a basic workaround of communicating with the others, not only in spoken English but also in written English, is something essential for you, not just as a fellow but also as a developer. Because
Yeah.
after a few years, you will be landing up in a remote job because of this COVID-19 pandemic. So you should be good in communicating your problems and your solutions to the other people so that you can work effectively. So it is not just about the fellowship, it is about engineering in general. So you don't have to be
Yes.
extreme good, it should have a basic workaround. So you are all fine. And that will be basically scrutinized in the first interview itself.
Yeah. How much you had paid in MLH?
Zero.
Okay. Okay. So I have a question. Which communities are you associated with, and how do they help you to grow yourself as a developer?
Okay. So the very first community I was associated with was FN Plus. So FN Plus
Okay.
is a small community based in Chennai. Like I just call it as Chennai because majority of the developers are from Chennai. And I was lucky to attend a few of their workshops back in my college on Flutter and UI designing. So I got associated
Okay.
with them. I joined their Telegram channel. I saw what are the other developers talking about. And this helped me to get to know something that was not taught in my college. So
Yeah.
in the first year of my college, I focused only on learning C, C++, data structures, algorithms, and all that. So, but I was looking for something more. So I remember that one of my senior gave me a project on Angular, and I didn't know what Angular is, so I thought that it was just another language. So things were quite funny back then. But then I joined the club. I saw like how the things are going on and how they are talking about things. And this is when I started exploring some new stuff as well, like about web development and machine learning. Then I got the chance to be a Microsoft student partner back in January this year. And this helped me to join a global community consisting of thousands of people from all over the world. And sometimes it was overwhelming that there were a lot of people talking about a lot of different things that I potentially don't know about. But I started reaching out to them and started talking about their experience and how do they do this and what sort of learning experience I can go forward with. So this helped me to bolster my experience, not only on the technical side, but also on the soft skill side. And it gave me a workaround of open source as well, to public speaking and how to communicate with the other people. So from my experience being a Microsoft student partner, so that is now rechristened as Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. It has been a total boon for me. Like it has been a boon for my career as well, because it has helped me to go an extra mile in my developer experience. And one more community I want to mention is DSC, basically Developer Student Club. And DSC is associated with Google developers, and it basically aims to set up clubs and communities in colleges all across the world to solve local community problems. So I got a lot of mentorship from my DSC team members. So they basically told me a lot of things on what should I do and how should I go with projects and all that. And right now, I'm a technical lead at my college DSC. So it has been a total surreal experience and a total boon for me during my whole journey as a developer in college.
Yeah, communities really help us to grow as a developer, and we get a lot of experience in public speaking, like you already said.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I have done project on Python, strong in C++, beginner in JS. What, according to you, for open source option, for which tech stack should I apply to get selected?
Uh, Basically, like if you're mentioning yourself as a beginner in JavaScript, I will just pre-assume that you know how to use loops, how to use functions, and all that in JavaScript. So basically, these are quite easy things to pick up on. So I will suggest that you go forward with a Python-based technology stack because you have already done a project on this. And once we do a project on a particular technology stack, we get to know a lot of things about the internal functioning of that language, what sort of bugs we can face, and how to do a lot of things. So, in my opinion, go with for Python because you have done a project on Python. I am expecting that you have a stronghold on that language. C++, there are no projects on that in MLH, I guess, and very few open source projects, except for those who are quite old school, like Shogun ML. Basically, it is a GSOC project. So until and unless you are looking for some proprietary based technology stack like Shogun or some technologies that are exactly implemented using only C++, so don't go forward with that. Go forward with Python. Or let's say if you're able to strengthen some basics with JavaScript and know some intermediate to advanced JavaScript concepts, then you can go forward with that as well. So that is completely your call.
Yeah. Okay. My college doesn't have Google DSC. Can I start it? I am in my first year.
So basically, once you will land upon, like I know Keval personally because we have been in touch for a very long time. So once
Okay.
the applications will start back again, Keval will be transitioning from first year to second year. And I have seen some DSC leads who have been able to successfully set up a DSC club in their college only by their second year. So yes, you can go forward with it. You just need to be a community person who has some good experience with developer communities and all. And I obviously know that you have a very good skills in Flutter and all. So yeah, you can go forward with that.
Okay. So after application form result, it would be great if again we have session like this and our queries will be solved. So I would love to have Harsh again on my channel. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
So how to hack NASA with HTML?
Document.design mode is equal to on. and just basically edit all the content that is on the web page, take a screenshot, forward it to friends and families, and say that yes, I have hacked NASA. It's as easy as
Okay,
that.
I hope NASA don't see this video. How should I start with data structure and algorithm in my third year?
So I will not call myself very great at data structure and algorithm, but I have a bit of experience with that, thanks to competitive coding and all. So if you want to start with data structure and algorithm, just start from the basics. And we as an engineer try to take the things as a whole. So let's say if you're trying to learn React, we will think that I want to learn the React as a whole. Instead, what you can do is that you can start breaking down the subject into small and consumable bits. So let's say you have a whole data structure and algorithm curriculum. It consists of a lot of subjects, like almost 15 to 16 topics. So try to break them down into multiple subtopics, or let's say create tickets on that, and try to tackle them one by one. So let's say you want to start data structures and algorithm from scratch. And the very first topic is about arrays and time and space complexity. So create separate tickets on that. Try to tackle them like within 1 or 2 weeks. Try to solve as many questions as possible so that it clears up your concept. And once you're confident that yes, I can go forward and I can solve any sort of question on that, and I can also explain my code and my approach to some other person, you can basically transition to the second ticket. So for this, I would highly suggest you to start using some sort of a software like Notion or Jira. Basically, try to divide your entire curriculum into multiple subtopics. You can take a look at how the some of the coding institutes are doing that, how they are dividing the whole curriculum into that, and try to do some self-learning because data structure and algorithm is pretty much a common topic. So you don't need any sort of a course or any sort of a curriculum to do that. So basically, you can do a bit of self introspection. You can start searching for topics. You can start searching for resources, and you can start doing the entire stuff.
Yeah, that's a pretty good advice. And Chris, you can follow this. Absolutely, Palvi. We will have a session on GSOC pretty soon. So yeah. So any ideas for mini projects?
Pratik, can you just mention me your technology stack, or should I just go for general, like something that fits for everyone? Okay, so let me just go for the general one right now. So I will just
Yeah.
pre-assume that you are good in Python and JavaScript, Python or JavaScript. So basically in both of them, you have some basic projects, like let's say create a password cracker script, something like this. If you're good in Python, try creating some scripts because they will expose you to the nuances of various Python libraries and modules, and also give you a very fun way of automating some things like let's say you're trying to find some new ports in an exposed website, something like that, and it will also give you a very good workaround experience for this purpose. For JavaScript, you can basically take a look at basic web development projects for the starting up, like how you can basically manipulate the DOM, or how you can have a simple website like a landing page or a portfolio page up and running. So for all this, I have a resource. Let me just share that, and possibly this can help you a lot. So I have compiled a whole list of beginner to advanced level of projects in one single repository. So I will just share that
Yeah,
with
that would
Seema.
be good.
Seema will share that. Yeah, Seema will share that with you.
I will
Yes.
attach it in the description or either the pinned comment after the session.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I'm sharing it in the chat for now, so you can pick it out. Okay. So next question is from Ankur. Actually, I have not contributed to open source till now. How to get started with it?
Okay. So basically, when we talk about open source, then I see that there are two sort of open source projects. The first one is actually trying to basically benefit a lot to the whole developer community, and these type of softwares are actually being used by millions of people all around the world. So if I talk about VLC media player, almost every Windows user is using VLC. If I talk about
Yeah.
Mozilla Firefox, almost every web developer is using Mozilla Firefox. But if you see some other type of open source projects, they are not basically used by people, but sometimes they are being used by developers, sometimes to enhance the developer experience or sometimes to just enhance the ways they are developing it. So you can basically try to find out the projects that are best suited for your experience currently. It is obvious that if you're like contributing to some very large code base, you will be getting stuck a lot because there are a lot of
Yeah.
things that you have to take care about. Like the most ugliest thing is the Travis cases. So basically, every time you make a
Yeah.
pull request, the Travis build will be running, and majority of the times it will fail for some reasons.
Mm.
So try finding some small skill projects that exactly adhere to the current design philosophies or the coding philosophies that you have. Let's say you are good in Python, so find some projects that are implemented using Python that are very small at scale, and the project maintainers are looking for some help on that particular project. So this will help you to get into touch with them and help them build some new experience, build some new features, and it will help you to get some new experience as well. So right now, next month there will be two open source programs coming up as per my best experience. One is by DevScript, it is the winter of code, and the other
Yeah.
one is by Script, that is again the winter of code. So you can apply
Yes.
for them. Both of them have like small to intermediate scale of projects. So you can like get in touch with the project maintainers. You can start asking them your basic questions like how to make a pull request, how to create a branch, or even some basic questions like how to set up a virtual environment and how to run the test cases. And the maintainers will be more than happy to guide you in the entire process.
Absolutely. So you have already a project on GitHub that is written script, which I have
Yeah.
already contributed to. So you can check that project. It's really awesome, and yeah, it's really an active project. You must check it out if you want to do automation and in Python or JavaScript or any other language. Okay. What to do when you are bombarded with 1,000-line code for open source for the first time? Okay.
So basically, if you just see a very like one single file that consists of a 1000 line of code, you can like start reading it right from the scratch. Just try to copy and paste every single line of code on Google and try to see like why they have implemented so. Sometimes you will get some new ideas on how you can refactor the code, because I have seen a lot of Python projects that are using object inheritance, and that feature is basically from Python 2 that is not supported by Python 3. So what you
Yeah.
can do is that you can start nitpicking some things. You can refactor the code and you can send a pull request. And if the maintainers are fine with this, they will basically merge this. So once you have a hang of it, like how to refactor the code, how to work around it, how to run the test cases, then you can start building up your feature. So your feature can be anything, like it can be a basic like button or a comment option, something like that. And you can extend that functionality right from the existing functionalities that they have. So it is not only about reading the 1000 line of code, it is about nitpicking the particular things that you have to work with. So sometimes out of those 1000 lines of code, you have to work with only a few functions or methods that you should really care about. And obviously, majority of the open source projects that are actively maintained have a wiki. So just try to hit up that, try to see up the
Yeah.
documentation on why they have implemented this and what possible optimizations you can do and what functionalities you can extend from the same.
Yeah. Okay, Pallavi is asking, I'm in my second year and I also don't have DSC in my college. Then I can apply for DSC lead for my college as application form begins in April, and in April I would be in my second year only. So yeah.
So since you don't have a DSC chapter in your college, so that is no issue. Basically, you can send a request form like you want to set up a DSC in your college, and that will be actively considered by the Google developers. And if you have an experience with community building and with development, they will be basically calling you for an interview for sure, because Google developers are increasingly looking for people who they can reach out to and who can help them set up some communities that help promote Google products in their colleges. So they are going to take all sort of helping hands in that.
Yeah. And Google have a lot of open source projects that you can look up to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Somyadeep is asking machine learning open source programs to look for.
So I don't know any specific machine learning program, like any open source program that only focuses on machine learning. But obviously, all the general open source programs have some projects related to machine learning. So you can possibly try to take a look at. And from a person who has done a machine learning for like past 1 year, I will just basically advise you not only to look at how to use libraries and modules in projects, also try to look at what can be the use cases of same. Because sometimes
Yeah.
to apply those machine learning models in real life, you need some real-time software development skill. So it is quite possible that you have to build an API, you have to test it. So try to take a look at that. And in that way, you can basically start integrating machine learning services to your application in a much effective way.
Yeah. Okay. If we have medium knowledge of Python, then why maintainer will be knowing more than me? Why would he will accept my pull request? How should I approach maintainers?
Okay, so I will talk a bit from my experience. So I recently contributed to Uber's casual ML library, and it is basically a ML toolkit that allows you to implement machine learning models without much code. Now, if you just take a look at their code, you can smell out a lot of things that should not be there, but it is there. Like some of the comments are non-functional doc strings. Then some of the people have used object inheritance. Some of the people are using repeated if, elif, else statements, and that are not exactly the best practices. So the maintainer has an experience in that. So why don't you start capitalizing upon the experience of the maintainer? So why don't you just reach out to him or her and basically ask about some sort of a guidance on the code base? And the maintainer is not claiming themselves to be some sort of an expert, to be some sort of a person who know everything about the code base. There can be some loopholes, there can be something that is not exactly going right, and that is why many of the open source projects have a lot of issues. So
Yeah.
no project is perfect. They have a lot of issues. So try to resolve them. And this is where your expertise as a Pythoneer or a Pythonist will come to handy, because you can have a different perspective upon that particular feature and you can start solving it up. So it is all about a matter of perspectives and not about the experience or the knowledge that you have for that particular technology stack.
What type of open source projects Google has? So would you like to take this question?
Basically, Google has only one open source program in my opinion. Sorry, two open source programs in my opinion. One is Google Summer of Code that basically goes for 3 months. I guess from uh, March or April. I guess I don't know the exact dates. But in that program, you will be basically contributing code to various open source organizations like Zeolib, Mozilla, Shogun ML, and all that. And the second program is Google Season of Docs. And in this, you will be basically contributing in form of documentation. And I tried applying it for this year, but I sadly got rejected. So no worries, I will apply next year. And Google had another program called Google Coding, and that was basically for school students. But
Yeah.
sadly, after 10 years of Google Coding, that was scrapped out so that Google can focus on bringing some other developer programs.
What is asked in the interview round for DSC?
I don't have any experience on this because I'm not a
Okay.
DSC lead.
Okay. So you are so managed in terms of time. What is secret behind it? How you manage time and do these great things in tech with academics? Any tips?
Okay, so the first tip I would suggest you is to start using some proprietary software like Notion. I cannot screen share right now, but I can show my Notion. There are a lot of details there. And in that, you can find a lot of things related to academics, internships, open source, and all. So it is all about time management. Basically, start prioritizing your time, start leaving out all the blockers and something that is basically wasting your time. And you will certainly get a new perspective on how you can further optimize your whole workflow. So there is a whole lot of philosophy on this that I will possibly not go into, but start with a software that can actually help you with managing your time and start using it effectively. So have a goal in your mind, work on that, strategize a bit, and try to do the whole thing. And once you strategize your whole workflow, you can obviously like manage your time, your academics, your open source or internships, whatever you're doing.
Yeah. So I think if you want to share your screen, I can do something.
Not right now. I
Uh,
just opened my Notion and there are a
okay.
lot of details that I personally don't
Okay.
want to
Okay. Okay. Okay.
share right now. Yeah,
Okay. That's okay.
yeah.
Please tell more about Google Season of Docs.
So it is quite similar to Google Summer of Code. There will be a 3 months program. You have to contribute in terms of documentation and not exactly code. So many of the open source projects are using an active documentation, something like a Sphinx doc generator or something like that. So sometimes the code bases get too large and the organizations are not able to document it quite well. So they just decided to have some people who can contribute to them in form of a program that can be run by Google itself, and they can get some active documentation so that they can fill in the gaps created by large code bases, or they can recreate the whole documentation. So some of the organizations are exactly looking to gamify their whole documentation. Basically, you can check out Microsoft Learn, and the whole learning experience is gamified. So they are also like trying to take a look at gamifying their documentation experience by using some sort of a tool like Moodle. I might take the name wrong, and this is how you do it. So you will be getting a stipend out of this, just like Google Summer of Code, and you will be working with organizations and mentors who will be guiding you in the entire process.
Okay, Pallavi, there is no Google code in now. Okay, so any tips for submitting code samples for MLH Fellowship? Can you share what you submitted while applying?
Okay, so if you just rewind the video a few minutes back, I have basically described it a lot. But at the
Yeah.
end, just give your best shot in the code sample, show everything that you have got, but don't just mash up a lot of things into that. So let's say if you are a React developer, you are working with hooks. So try to show like how you can engineer the state management with hooks and how to do that effectively. Also try to comment the code, like basically show what functionality you're implementing and how it is working around. And lastly, try to work around a real world problem. So if you're like creating a landing page of some fictional company, that is not a real world problem. So try to work on some real world problem that is solving some real world issues. It might be
Yeah.
imperfect, it might be that it is not working properly, uh, but again, projects are just an excuse for you to write some practical code. So try to
Yeah.
leverage on that. Try to write some code that exactly tries to solve a problem, and try to have a future perspective on what you are going to do with this in the future. So my project was Newsfresh. It is basically a fake news detection application that has been implemented using Django and scikit-learn. So this was a hackathon project, and we basically won the second prize at Hacking 2.0, uh, and Smart India Hackathon internals as well. So I decided to just submit this project because I did a lot of crazy hacks in that, like scraping some news from data sources and all. So yeah, that was all about my code sample.
Yeah. So what is gamified?
Gamify just means that you will enjoy while you are learning. So if you just go to Microsoft Learn, you take a course, let's say on Git and GitHub, they will tell you a lot of things, and at last they will ask you two basic questions. Like they
Yeah.
might ask you like, how is Git add and Git clone different? Or they might ask you, what is the difference between Git pull and Git push? So this is what we call as a gamified experience. Uh, Basic reasoning behind gamified experience is that you just don't get bored of the whole user experience, and you're just hooked into that particular application and you just reach up to the end. So that is the basic meaning of gamified.
For GSOC, is it necessary to be a college student?
It was necessary, but according to the new guidelines, you can
Yeah.
even be a GSOC student if you have been a participant of some boot camp or some other program. I have to just go through the guidelines back again, but feel free to check it out on the GSOC website.
Yes. Had you ever thought of establishing any startup or any small business?
No, because I don't feel I'm much qualified for that.
Okay. So I have a question. What you have learned from hackathons?
Practically a lot of things. So basically, I was totally into machine learning, deep learning, and data modeling. And I was trying to apply for multiple internships, but I was not able to get any of them. Because sometimes in machine learning, we tend to have a requirement for mathematics and statistics. And I don't have a very good mathematics background. And this is when I decided to participate in a hackathon. So basically, in our college, we formed a team for Smart India Hackathon, and we basically decided to build a project for fake news detection that I mentioned about earlier.
Yeah.
So during that particular Smart India Hackathon date, we basically divided our team into two parts. One team will be going to Smart India Hackathon, and one team will be going to Hack Infinity 2.0. And we basically will be demonstrating the same project at both of the places. So, and luckily we won at both of the places. In Smart India Hackathon internals, we won the first prize. And in Hack Infinity 2.2, we won the second prize. So, and luckily we also got an internship from one of the judges of that particular hackathon. And it was basically a full stack web development internship. So from hackathons, I have learned a lot of things. The first, how the projects can help you to boost your portfolio. So back in my college, like I used to develop a lot of projects, and some of them were quite weird ones that had no practical use case. But by going to a hackathon, I decided to approach problems by having some sort of a practical use case, and it also helped me good at explaining my code and my approach and what I have developed. The second thing that I learned is how to pitch yourself, and this is quite
Yeah.
essential if you're like looking to go into marketing or looking to like start a startup or a business. So in a startup or a business, you have to basically pitch yourself a lot of time, and you have to
Yes.
brag about a lot. You have to prioritize your product at first. So I have seen a lot of hackathons where people brag about a lot, and this basically helped me to learn something for my own personal branding as well, so that I can implement it in my own projects as well. Third, it helped me learn a lot of new technology stack without having a lot of experience in them. So by going to the Hack Infinity 2.0, I learned Django in just 2 nights, and that was a surreal experience. But it helped me level up something much beyond that what I can learn from any course or from any curriculum. So learning from hackathons is something that I cherish about, and this is why in the Explorer pod as well of MLH Fellowship, I'm learning quite a lot and trying to implement it as well.
That's great. I also learned a lot of things in just I have just attended one hackathon in my life, but from that I have learned Django. Yeah, so it was
Yeah.
great experience.
Yes.
Okay, so how to build a team for hackathon and how to choose team members.
Okay, so building a team for hackathons is exactly tricky because in one of the first hackathon I participated, I had a team of 4 people, but I was the practically the only person who worked on the entire project. So sometimes taking in friends and people whom you know personally a lot about can be a bit problematic
Yeah.
because sometimes they are not able to work on the technology stack or the idea that you have, and you have to be the sole developer in the whole team. But again, there is a silver lining to the whole thing. Let's say if you're into college, let's say if you're like into first or the second year, you can possibly find some people who are exactly as passionate as you or as enthusiastic as you about building projects or getting some new experience. And once you have a team, start learning in a group. So there is one guy on Twitter, I forgot his name, but he always suggests to start learning in public. So if you learn in public, you will get a lot of feedback on what you're learning and how you can further
Yes.
optimize it. So once you are in a team that has exactly got the same goal as you can start working on a common technology stack or a common project together, and you can further optimize the entire workflow, or you can suggest some things of what we can improve upon. So I have seen a lot of teams that are from the same college and that have been completely rocking in hackathons. So having some people that are as enthusiastic as you is exactly quite
Yeah.
benefited. But again, if
Yeah.
you're not able to find team members, there is no need for that. Just join some hackathon, go to the Slack workspace or Discord server, and just say that I'm good in this and that, and I'm looking for some new team members. And there will be a lot of people who will be willing to join your team.
Okay. Hey Harsh, I contributed in your project in Hacktoberfest. So that's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, while participating in hackathon, we have to work on some idea, but due to lack of knowledge in tech stack, is it true that the person who is having good knowledge in tech stack should participate?
Technology stack is completely secondary when it comes to creating, like working on a hackathon project. Sometimes you have idea of creating a full stack application, but none of your team members know about using some sort of a technology stack like Node.js or Django. So perhaps you
Yeah,
can go into PHP and start working on the same. So if you're like working on a technology stack that you consider inferior for some reasons, then quite possibly you can re-optimize your whole workflow, or else you can just keep it for the future perspective. So if I just take an example, the traditional SQL databases like MySQL and uh, SQLite, so they
yeah,
are not able to scale horizontally. So perhaps you can just keep it as a future perspective that in the future we are going to use a technology stack that is no SQL based, that will allow us to scale horizontally and vertically as well. So these all come into the future perspective, but technology stack is always secondary. What comes first is the project that you're working on and what sort of hacks you are applying. So
yeah,
every time in a hackathon, someone will be asking like, what sort of hack you did in this? So hack can be anything. Like you basically, like if I just go to my past experience, we didn't have the backend up and running. So what we did was that we created a fake JSON server so that we can mock up the entire backend. And the judges team didn't knew that we didn't had a backend up and running. So that is a hack
yeah,
you can apply to your project, and that will basically show the creative mindset that you have for this particular whole thing. So just try to capitalize upon that, and everything will be just fine.
yeah. How do you get cool ideas for hackathon and how to create that creative mindset like you?
I don't have a creative mindset. I will be brutally honest on that. I want to be in my comfort zone for a very long time, and it is only when I get bored that I come out of it. Regarding cool ideas, just try to find whatever is having problematic with you. Like I'm
Yeah,
currently looking for contributions to my Speak It project. I have not written a single code of it, but I simply looking for people who can contribute to this. And it is basically a community-based platform that allows the people to connect with the speakers. So if we just go on LinkedIn, we are having people who are facing a lot of problems in finding speakers for their events. So we decided,
yeah,
like I thought that why not have a community platform for this purpose, and this is where Speak It came in. So just try to find some crazy ideas, and once you have the crazy ideas, just keep a note of them like on a notebook or something else, and try to
yeah,
start working on it. Try to polish the idea. Try to have some features that can be a part of your minimal viable product, so that you can pitch this during some hackathon or during some startup incubation. So yeah, that was the complete thing.
yeah. So Jivanshi has a question that I want to work in core product research management area. I'm already working research projects with mega data sets. How can I grab internships for that as I need some industrial exposure too?
So I have known Jivanshi for quite a long time, and she has been doing a phenomenal work in machine learning field. But I'm afraid that I don't have much experience with product research management and all that. But you can possibly take a look at some communities and companies that are exactly working on the same data sets that you're working on. Like if I just take an example, then we have got Omdena. So Omdena has a lot of projects that tries to solve some social related problems. So you can possibly apply for them. And as far as I know from my mates and all, they basically start without having any sort of a data set, but they have a very good user research on what exact problem they are trying to solve. So you can possibly apply for them, and you can see like what you can learn from the entire process. Beside that, you can always like create some new projects. learn and reiterate upon them and start applying for some companies who are actually working upon data modeling and real-time data analysis. So this will help you to gain some industrial exposure, even at an undergraduate level.
Yeah. Can you please share how was your interview experience for MLH if you have not discussed about it before? I
I
think.
have discussed about it before,
Yeah.
like in the very first itself.
Yeah. Okay. So a little bit more about Dave's script.
I'm not a part of DevScript, and I just know a few people who are a part of it. So possibly you can just find their page on LinkedIn or on Instagram,
Yeah.
and you can start contacting the people who are a part of it. So I'm afraid I cannot answer this.
Okay. So what's your favorite tech and why?
Okay, so my favorite technology stack is Flask and React.
Okay.
The main reason behind this is Flask is one of the very first backend framework that I learned. And every time, like I start creating a project that has got some sort of a backend, I don't know why, but I start working on it using Flask. So once I like finish the prototype using Flask, I start moving forward with some other technology stack like Django or Node.js. So the main reason behind Flask is because it is quite easy to work with. You can get a backend up and running within few functions and a few routes, and you basically don't have to do a lot of things in Flask. So right now I'm exploring Fast API that, according to me, is like an abstraction over Flask, and Chalice that is basically an AWS based micro web framework that allows us a single click to develop deploy on AWS. And coming on to the front end, my favorite is React because of obvious reason. It is certainly the most easiest to learn with, and also it has got a very gentle learning curve, and it is a complete UI based component architecture. So these all make it a very huge favorite for my current needs. So possibly
Okay.
sometimes we get some sort of a project that is not possible either on Flask or on React. So possibly we need to reiterate and we need to find some new technology stack that we have to work upon. So
Yeah.
for past 3 months, I was working as a freelance developer at a Mumbai-based marine company, and they had the traditional site on WordPress, and my task was to basically export the whole site from WordPress to Django. So again, I had to relearn Django, learn a lot of things in Django that I was potentially not knowing about, and reiterate on the whole process. So learning and unlearnings are a part of the whole thing.
Yes. Okay. How to get a good ML internship?
I'm afraid I cannot answer that back again because I have not done a lot of ML
Okay.
internships. Yeah, but from my experience in ML interviews, don't try to skip data structures and algorithm because I remember that I interviewed for a US based company that was working in data engineering and machine learning. At the first round, they bombarded me with questions from data structures and algorithm. So don't try to skip on that. Don't try to be a framework or a library kiddie. Try to implement some of the concepts right from the scratch. Like let's say you can implement a TF-IDF vectorizer without using NumPy, without using some sort of a library, just using NumPy. So try using that. And this will basically tell you a lot about how the algorithms are working right from the back. And majority of the companies are looking for machine learning developers. So there might be some sort of differences in how the companies are hiring for any particular position. Sometimes they will just ask you some basic questions about machine learning and data science, while some other companies will basically scrutinize the whole process and will try to go in deep during this. So you can possibly take a look at some interview experience of how the other people have done that. So this will give you a whole lot of clarity on this.
Yeah. So how to learn React in the most efficient way?
So the most efficient way of learning React can be exactly by converting your existing web development projects into React. So as you know that React follows a component-based architecture. So everything that you see on a React application is a component. So possibly you can start creating components, and that component can be as simple as some HTML templates and some CSS styling. And you can start implementing them in your React application. You don't need to implement any sort of complex JavaScript for that. Once you have a hang of it, you can start moving on to some intermediate and advanced topics, like how to do state management in React, how you can basically set up a backend for your React application and all that.
Okay, what is voice of code?
So Voice of Code is basically a blogging community that is brought forward by Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, and
Okay.
it is being run by Adil and Nancy. Adil is a MSP from Pakistan, and Nancy is from India. And I'm currently serving as a Medium lead, but I basically review the blogs that are submitted by other people, so that I can just make it fine for publishing on the Medium application.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. How you got into the world of open source, how it helped you to grow as a developer.
Okay, so basically my open source experience started with Hacktoberfest, and I started contributing to data structures and algorithm code. And I guess majority of us start by contributing some DS and algo concepts. So it
Yeah.
started from the last year Hacktoberfest. And this is when I came to know that there are something that is called as issues, pull requests, branches, and all that.
Yeah.
Once I got the hang of it, I successfully completed my 4 pull requests in Hacktoberfest. I applied for JIIT Month of Code, and that is basically an annual program by JP Institute of Information Technology. So I contributed in a scripts repository. So basically, that repository consisted of Python scripts, and I contributed a lot of scripts in that, and I got to be a top performer in the same. So that gave me an incentive of finding some new open source projects and contributing to them. In the meantime, I started uploading some of my own projects to GitHub as well, just so that I can list them on my portfolio and that can be available for public view. And it was at this time when Girl Scripts Hour of Code started. And it is a very large program, like almost thousands of participants joined this program and contributed to it actively. So I contributed to a plethora of projects in the scene. And by the end, I almost had a rank of some 57 or 59. I don't exactly remember. And this is when the entire experience of my open source came to be. And after that, I started administering some of the programs like Student Coding, P-Club Summer of Code, Hacking Codes, so that I can help the other developers get started with contributing to open source program. And then came the MLH Fellowship, which helped me to start contributing in form of hackathon projects. But it also showed me the way of contributing to some large code bases on Google and Uber.
Yeah. I guess we most of us start with Hacktoberfest and these programs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know Flask, but the UI that I make is trash. How can I make the UI better and do it faster?
So the one golden advice that one of the people who is my senior gave to me, that before starting with any sort of a website, try to make the user interface on some sort of a prototyping tool. So it can be on Adobe XD, it can be on Figma, it can be even on
Yeah.
Photoshop. And basically, it should just give you the whole layout of how your web application will look to the end user. So if you just go into any product-based company, this is how the standard process looks like. Before writing the code, we have to go through a lot of designs like high-level design, low-level design, setting up CI/CD pipelines, doing the user research and all that things. So don't just start writing the code. Try to brainstorm upon how the end application will be looking to the user, and start working on it and start iterating and reiterating this on the bit. So maybe the user interface you have thought of is exactly adhering to the code that you have written. And once you have written that, you possibly think that this is not exactly what I was trying to make it. So why don't you just create the user interface on some sort of a prototyping tool or even on a piece of paper? That will basically give you a whole layout in your mind on what you're exactly going to do with the user interface. So having some experience with UI UX will always help you to start working on your front end applications much more effectively.
Okay. How you keep yourself motivated? Have you ever faced burnout, FOMO, imposter syndrome? If yes, how you deal with it?
Uh, like if I just feel demotivated at any time, I just go and take a look at John Wick and what he is trying to do. So basically, this is a very odd form of motivation, but this is what makes the motivation for me. And I have faced burnout, imposter syndrome a lot of time because I have been seeing my
Mm.
peers doing a lot of things that I potentially cannot. But again, I just try to tell myself that everyone has their own story. Some of them started their story a bit
Yes.
earlier, and some of them will start the story a bit late. So even if you're not able to succeed in the way that you want to see yourself right now, you can possibly think on what success actually means to you and how will you be defining in the later stage of your life. So getting a fan based company or getting MLS fellowship or getting selected in GSOC will not define as success because sometimes it doesn't come with a peace of mind. So try to define the
Yeah.
success for you and try to iterate, try to work on this. And this will help you to keep the state of the mind intact and also to work on your goals.
Yeah. Also, if you love doing something, then you will never get bored or feel any imposter syndrome. Maybe that's for me. Okay. So, what is MLH application fee in India, and how many times can one apply as per year if application gets rejected?
Basically, MLH asks you for an application fees so that they can give you an objectionable feedback on your application. But again, you can just skip that part. You can see that I cannot
Yeah.
afford the application fees, and that will be completely fine. Because as far
Yeah.
as I've talked to people, none of them have paid the application fees for the process. And coming on to the reaction, like coming on to the rejection part, so you can apply to MLH as many times as you want, unless and until the
Yeah.
applications are open and they will not be basically scrutinizing you on that part. So if you're getting rejected once, you can possibly contact someone who has been selected and ask them some feedback on what are the possibilities of getting selected in the next application if I start working on my drawbacks. So the drawbacks can be anything. You just messed up with the essay part, or you didn't submit the code sample that exactly shows your experience and your development skill. So you have like 3 to 4 months of time, start working on them, start improving that a bit, and reapply for it. So it is as simple as that. Failure is never like a one-time thing. So failure के बाद का
Yeah.
next chapter ही success होता है. If I take that in
Yes.
Hindi.
Absolutely. Okay. So, any life lessons for the students you want to share?
For the life lessons, I just want to go back to one of the trilogy books that I have read. So there is this author, Amish Tripathi, and he has basically
Yeah.
written a trilogy that is Shiva
Yes.
trilogy. And
Yeah.
the one thing that Shiva trilogy actually teaches me is how to see things from a different perspective. So it is always that if someone has done wrong to us, we always try to judge them by the action that they have done. But let's say if we are doing wrong to someone, we will try to judge it not by the action, but by the mindset that we had for that particular action. So
Yeah.
in the whole process, we completely lose the perspective that we should be having for the other one. So let's say if you are a part of some team and let's say your core developer is not working or your core teammate is not answering your calls or something like that. So try to see the things from a different perspective and
Yeah.
try not to judge them based on what they are doing. Just try to get in touch with them, try to resolve the conflicts and try to work on that. And that will basically go a very long way for you.
Yes. Absolutely. Okay. From where you get to know about upcoming opportunities.
So as long as you're well connected on LinkedIn, you will never face this problem. So
Yeah.
always try to have some good connections that are exactly philanthropic. So they will
Yeah.
exactly be sharing a lot of opportunities about what you can do. So even the MLH Fellowship or GSOC or Outreachy, they are so popular because of the network that they have created. So there are a lot of
Yes.
people who are talking about it. And this is the reason why many people know about this. So compared to this, there are many programs that are actively sponsored. Like right now, for the first years, there is this engineering virtual program by Goldman Sachs. But since many people have not been associated with such a program, it is highly underrated and very few people are actually applying to it. So
Yeah.
always try to have some good connections, try to connect with them, try to talk with them so that they can share some opportunities that they have in mind right now. So once the fellowship application started back again, I sent a message to almost everyone in my contacts that the applications are back again. So if you need any help, just ping me and I will be more than happy to help you out. So this is a very good way of building connections and building some trust and the
Yes.
value as well.
Yes. Can you list down some December coming hackathons?
Yeah, sure. So basically, you can just subscribe to MLH newsletter, and the newsletter
Yeah.
consists of a lot of hackathons that are like coming up in the next month or the upcoming months. So that will be a very
Yes.
good way. Otherwise, just go to LinkedIn and Twitter, search for the keyword hackathon, and there will be a lot of results out of that. So right now,
Yes.
VIT is organizing one hackathon. I just forgot the name. Let me just search that. I guess
Yeah.
it is Hack Off version 3.2. So I will be mentoring in that. So hit up for that hackathon and start building some crazy projects, and you will have my support in that. And yes, and basically there are some other sites as well like Skillenza and Folio and DevPost.
Yeah.
So they also
Yeah.
have a lot of upcoming hackathons listed. So just find this hackathon suitable to you. If you're a beginner, try to find a hackathon that is a bit smaller in size. And let's say if you have some crazy project in mind, and if you have a crazy team that is going to exactly make the project by the end of the coding period, so try to go some to some bigger hackathons and try to create some impact there.
Okay. Can you share the link of the hackathon that you were talking about?
Yeah, sure. Just let me search that. Yes, here it
Yeah.
is. Also, there will be a hackathon conducted by Code Warriors. Let me just search for that again. So I will be taking a session on developing React applications using Amplify. So you can possibly take a look at that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I have shared the link in the chat. You can check that out. And Ankur is saying that I'm your connection on LinkedIn. It would be great if you too please share the opportunity for hackathons and other programs.
Okay, sure. I will start posting regularly on LinkedIn because I have not done that for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, yeah. Thank you so much for coming here, and it was a great experience. I too learned a lot of things from you. I always do. So yeah, thank you. And yeah. So if anyone has any question, you can drop in the chat. Otherwise, we will end the session now. We took a lot of time from Harsh. Thank you, Purnima. Thank you, Anjali. Okay, so I guess we should end the session. And thanks again, Harsh, for joining. Okay, we have a question. Public speaking tips, if any. I'm introvert a little and never tried this. Okay.
Yeah, so find a friend that is a better communicator than you. Try to
Yeah.
get them into calls every day and try to speak with them. And once you're confident of communicating your thoughts with them, so everything will just go pretty fine. And the major advantage in this virtual world right now is that you don't actually have to face hundreds of people on a stage and speak in front of
Yeah.
them. You can just plug your headphone and you can like start talking on the specific topic as if you're like talking to some other person, and no one is
Yes.
exactly going to judge you on that. So just go
Yeah.
into the trial and the error way. There is no such sort of a drink like Red Bull that will exactly give you wings about public speaking. So basically do a trial and error on a lot of things, and you will basically find a lot of ways that are going for you and going against you as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Uncle. Ankur, and thank you, Soumyadeep. So yeah, so that's it for the episode 2 of Developer Diaries, and we had a great time talking about your experiences and your learnings. So thank you, Harsh, and thank you all the people who have joined. So yeah, bye.
Have a good day, good night.
Yeah.
Yeah.